Welcome to another episode of Books and Bytes.
Glad to be here.
Today we're diving deep into Friedrich Nietzsche's The Gay Science.
That's right. It's a fascinating one.
It really is. Now, when you first see that title, The Gay Science, you might think, well, maybe something light, perhaps even a bit frivolous.
That's a common first impression.
But what we found, what we'll explore today, is it's actually this profoundly insightful work. And it's delivered with a unique blend of wit and seriousness.
Very unique.
So our goal in this deep dive is really to pull out the most vital ideas Nietzsche presents. We want to give you a solid understanding of his core arguments in this, pivotal text without getting too bogged down in, overly academic stuff.
Exactly. And starting with that title, gay, it's interesting how Nietzsche uses the term, isn't it?
It really is. It's not the contemporary meaning at all.
Not at all. Think of it more like a gay spirit, maybe. A kind of joyful affirmation of life, an intellectual pursuit, even when you're facing difficult truths.
Right.
He actually talks about the art of joyful wisdom. And that spirit, that underlying feeling, it really shapes how he approaches philosophy in the whole book.
Absolutely. And you see it right from the preface, don't you? Where he talks about embracing laughter and courage and even dancing in philosophy.
Yeah, dancing.
It's like a stark contrast to the often very somber, very serious tone we usually associate with philosophy.
It's a deliberate contrast, I think. Nietzsche is consciously pushing back against that purely solemn approach.
Okay.
He's suggesting maybe that wisdom can be found not just through super rigorous analysis, but also through a certain lightness, a willingness to sort of play with ideas.
Right, a playful engagement.
Yeah. And that immediately signals that The Gay Science is going to be a different kind of philosophical read, maybe even a bit subversive.
So keeping that tone in mind, let's jump into some of the core ideas. These start emerging pretty early in books 1 and 2. One that really stands out is his notion of truth as a woman. What's going on there? What is he trying to get at?
Well, it's classic Nietzsche using metaphor, right? He's not making some literal point about women.
No, of course not.
Instead, he seems to be using that image to critique how philosophy traditionally tried to grasp truth, often very forcefully, very dogmatically.
I'm trying to pin it down.
Exactly. He's suggesting truth might be more elusive than that. It might require a more subtle approach, maybe even a more persuasive or artful way in rather than just brute intellectual force. It definitely challenges the idea that truth is just sitting there, static, waiting to be captured easily.
That really makes you think about how we try to learn things, doesn't it? Often we try to sort of force understanding instead of letting it unfold. And another early idea he brings up is life as art. What are the implications if we actually try to live like that?
Life as art. If you see this in the context of his broader philosophy, it becomes this really powerful call. It suggests we shouldn't just, passively exist. We should actively shape our lives with intention, with creativity, a bit like an artist with their canvas or clay.
Okay.
And that involves embracing everything, the beautiful bits, the challenging bits, and trying to make something meaningful, something unique out of it all.
I like the sense of agency that gives you. You're not just watching your life happen. You're actively participating, constantly shaping it.
Precisely.
And that connects pretty strongly with his emphasis on intellectual honesty, doesn't it?
It does, very strongly.
Because to, craft your life as art,
right,
you need to be honest about your materials.
Yeah.
Right? Your strength, weaknesses, the world around you.
Exactly. Intellectual honesty for Nietzsche is like the bedrock. You need it for any genuine self-creation. It's the courage, really, to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about the world.
Even if they challenge our beliefs.
Especially then. Because without that honesty, any attempt to shape your life is just, it's built on illusion, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's often toughest when you have to face your own biases, maybe, or limitations. It's easier to stick with the comfortable story.
Much easier.
And this honesty, then, it feeds into his early critique of morality. He starts questioning where our ideas of good and evil even come from.
Right. This is significant because Nietzsche starts moving away from morality as something, divinely given or universally fixed.
Okay.
He begins exploring how our moral codes might actually be rooted in specific historical things, social conditions, even psychological needs.
So not absolute truths.
Potentially not. He suggests what we call good or evil might be products of, say, power dynamics or what society needed at a certain time.
That makes you look at today's values differently. Are they serving us, or are they just like echoes from the past?
That's exactly the kind of question he wants us to ask. And this naturally leads him to start unsettling religious foundations, even before he gets to the big death of God idea.
Right, he's already chipping away.
Yeah, even early on, he's subtly suggesting that the authority of religious belief might be fading. He prompts us to think, are our concepts of God, our religious doctrines, are they maybe human constructs?
Things we created to fulfill certain needs.
Perhaps psychological needs, social functions, rather than representing objective reality. He's definitely laying the groundwork for what comes later.
Interestingly, alongside this critique, he also brings in the idea of the will to suffer. Not seeking pain, but seeing it as a catalyst for growth.
Yeah, that can sound a bit intense, but he's not saying go look for pain.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that overcoming challenges, enduring hardship, that can lead to greater strength, to resilience, to actually a deeper appreciation for life.
So facing adversity is key.
He sees the willingness to confront and overcome it as a sign of vitality, a necessary part of self-overcoming.
Yeah, you often learn the most from the really tough times.
Absolutely.
Then there's his perspective on morality as timidity and the critique of pity. This can sound quite harsh.
It can, yes. Nietzsche worries that some forms of morality, especially ones that put pity above everything else, might actually reinforce weakness, dependency even.
How so?
He argues that too much pity might stop both the person giving it and the person receiving it from striving for strength, for self-reliance. It's a nuanced critique, really. He's not saying compassion is bad, but that overdoing the pity aspect could be, well, detrimental for individuals and maybe society.
It makes you think about how to offer real support without maybe enabling dependence. It's a tricky balance.
It is. And throughout these early books, you also notice his language. It's often very poetic. It's not just dry philosophy.
Yeah, definitely not. Why do you think he does that? He uses this more artistic style.
I think the poetic language is crucial for him. He seemed to believe that truth wasn't only accessible through, dry, logical steps.
Okay.
Poetry, with its metaphors, its imagery, its emotional pull, allows for a richer engagement, a more multifaceted way into complex ideas.
Makes it more engaging.
Yeah, it makes philosophy more vibrant. It appeals not just to the intellect, but also to emotions, to the imagination. It definitely makes it more memorable.
It does. The images really stick with you. And yet, he still values reason, right? He balances this with recognizing the importance of instincts and passions, too.
Exactly. He's not throwing reason out. He's arguing for a more holistic view of being human, one that acknowledges the huge role our instincts and passions play.
As sources of energy?
Energy, creativity, life affirmation,
Wow.
not things to be just suppressed by pure rationality.
Okay, so that sets a really interesting stage. Foundational ideas are there. Then we hit book 3 and the huge declaration, the death of God.
Yeah.
Particularly in that aphorism, the madman.
Ah, yes, the madman.
For someone hearing this phrase, God is dead, for the first time, how do you explain what Nietzsche actually meant?
It's probably his most famous idea, and yeah, often misunderstood. He's not saying, like, a literal being just popped out of existence.
Like, not a news report.
No. It's more a profound cultural observation. He's seeing the decline of belief in a divine cosmic order, and, crucially, the values that came from that belief system, particularly in the West.
So it's the foundation crumbling.
Exactly. The erosion of religious faith as the main guiding force for morality, for meaning.
And you can feel that grappling for meaning still today, can't you?
Absolutely. We're arguably still living in the echo of that event.
That image of the madman running into the marketplace, shouting this.
Yeah.
And people just don't get it. It's incredibly powerful. What's the key message in their reaction?
The reception, or lack thereof, really highlights Nietzsche's point. While the belief might have faded for many, the full implications of that loss haven't sunk in yet.
People are still operating on the old framework.
In many ways, yes. Still using a moral and cultural structure shaped by centuries of Christian values, even if they don't consciously subscribe to the religion anymore. The madman's frustration, his lament, it points to the huge void that's been created, and the challenge of finding new sources for meaning, for value.
And aphorism 108, New Struggles, seems to pick right up on that, anticipating this crisis of values when the old certainties disappear. What kind of new struggles was he thinking of?
Well, I think Nietzsche foresaw a struggle to basically redefine everything.
Yeah.
How do you define morality now? How do you create new values? How do you orient yourself in the world without that divine compass?
Period of uncertainty.
Definitely. And a need for humanity to essentially take responsibility for creating its own meaning. No more relying on external authority for it.
Amidst all this heavy stuff, he also emphasizes being able to laugh at oneself, as a philosophical tool even. That seems almost counterintuitive.
It does, but it's important for him. Being able to laugh at yourself, for Nietzsche, is a sign of maybe intellectual maturity, a healthy perspective.
How so?
It implies you can detach a bit from your own beliefs, take yourself less seriously. Humor becomes a way to navigate life's complexities, its contradictions, with a bit more lightness, resilience even.
Yeah, taking yourself too seriously can definitely block understanding.
For sure. And he also worries that science, which might seem like the natural successor to religion, could become its own kind of dogma.
A new, unquestionable authority.
That's the danger he saw. He valued scientific inquiry, of course, but cautioned against just swapping one kind of blind faith for another. He urged constant questioning, critical examination, even towards science itself.
That's a tension we still see today. Valuing science but avoiding scientism, maybe?
Precisely. And underlying all these points is this deep dive into psychology, guilt, fear, the hidden motives behind our beliefs.
Right. His philosophy is deeply psychological.
Very much so. He's always trying to uncover the unconscious drives, the motivations that shape our values, our morals, our beliefs. By understanding those forces, he hopes we can get a more critical, more nuanced view of, well, being human.
Okay, let's move into Book 4, Sanctus Januarius. There feels like a shift here, more towards affirmation, right? And we get the introduction of that really intense thought experiment, eternal recurrence.
Eternal recurrence. Yes, a major shift towards affirmation. This idea, especially in aphorism 341, it really stops you in your tracks.
It does. Can you walk us through it? What's the core idea?
Okay, so imagine, he says, that a demon tells you that this life you're living now, exactly as it is, with every single joy, every single sorrow, every detail, you will have to live it again, and again, and again, infinitely.
Wow.
Nietzsche poses this as the ultimate test, the heaviest weight. How would you react? Would you curse the demon, or would you welcome it, seeing it as divine confirmation?
So it's about your fundamental attitude to your own life.
Exactly. It's the ultimate test of life affirmation. Could you honestly say yes to living this exact life over and over? It forces you to live in such a way that you would want to relive every moment.
That is incredibly challenging. It's not really about physics or cosmology, is it?
No, most scholars agree it's not a literal metaphysical claim about how the universe works. It's an ethical, existential challenge, a radical call to self-examination. Do you truly love and embrace all of your existence, the good and the bad?
Enough to repeat it forever.
Precisely. And this ties into finding joy in suffering and becoming a dancer on the abyss. Such vivid images he uses.
They really are. Joy in suffering sounds like a contradiction. How does he make that work?
Again, it's not about liking pain for its own sake. It's about recognizing suffering is, well, unavoidable. It's part of life.
Okay.
So the challenge is to find a way to affirm life despite suffering, maybe even through it. The dancer on the abyss is that figure who can keep their joy, their vitality, even knowing how precarious and uncertain existence is.
Maintaining balance on the edge.
Yeah, it's about strength, resilience, and just a profound love of life and all its messy complexity.
And in this context, creating meaning where there are no guarantees, he talks about the philosopher as artist.
Yes. With the old frameworks gone, Nietzsche sees the philosopher's role changing, not just finding truths that are already out there,
But creating them.
creating values, creating meaning. Like an artist shapes raw material, the philosopher interprets existence, gives it form.
Interesting. He also stresses the need for solitude and danger for deep thought. Doesn't sound very comfortable.
No, he didn't think profound growth came from comfort zones. Solitude gives you space for real introspection, away from the crowd.
Right.
And confronting danger, whether it's intellectual danger, challenging norms, or even physical risk, builds courage, resilience, deep insights, he suggests, rarely come from playing it safe.
You have to step outside the mainstream.
Often, yes. And this leads to the idea of self-overcoming, which seems absolutely central, constantly striving to become more, to transcend yourself through struggle.
A continuous process.
Exactly. A journey of growth, transformation. You identify your limits, you challenge yourself, you try to surpass who you were yesterday. It's dynamic, ongoing. It's fueled by what he broadly terms the will to power, not domination, but the drive for growth, mastery, self-expression.
Always pushing boundaries.
That's the idea. And there's that incredible motto in Aphorism 276. I want to learn more and more to see as beautiful what is necessary in things. That feels like it sums up so much of this affirmative stance.
It really does. What does that mean in practice, do you think?
I think it encapsulates that core idea of cultivate a perspective where you can appreciate, maybe even find beauty in, the inevitable parts of life, including the difficult parts, the necessary changes, the suffering.
Accepting reality.
Accepting reality as it is, yeah. Not wishing it were different. And finding value, maybe even joy in how things necessarily unfold. It's about shifting focus from what you lack or wish away to finding the beauty in what is.
Okay. Then Book 5, which was added later, seems to really grapple with the consequences of all these ideas. Aphorism 343, the meaning of our cheerfulness, seems to directly tackle joy after the death of God.
Yes, Book V feels like a more mature reflection on everything that came before. The meaning of our cheerfulness asks, can we still have genuine, meaningful joy without those old metaphysical props?
His answer.
He suggests yes, but this new cheerfulness has to be grounded differently. Grounded in a conscious yes to life. A courageous embrace of its uncertainties. It's not a naive cheerfulness.
It sounds like a harder-won joy.
Exactly. Earned, perhaps. And he also comes back to science, saying it now has to justify its own values. It can't just inherit authority.
Right, it's not automatically the new truth source.
In a world without God as the ultimate guarantor, Nietzsche argues science also needs scrutiny. It has its own assumptions, its own values embedded within it. It can't just be a new dogma.
It needs self-awareness.
And justification, which connects to the looming danger of nihilism he addresses.
A sense of meaninglessness.
Yes. With the old values gone, there's a real risk of falling into despair, believing nothing matters. His response isn't just to find new values, but to engage in a radical revaluation of all values.
What does that actually involve?
It means critically examining all our values. Where do they come from? What purpose do they serve? Do they affirm life or deny it? And then consciously creating new values that are life-enhancing, specifically for a world without divine command.
Asking the why behind everything we value.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But he also warns about intellectuals, the higher intellectuals, potentially failing this task, becoming passive last men.
The last man. What's that?
It's his cautionary figure. Someone who, in this new era, just seeks comfort and contentment. They've lost the drive for greatness, for risk, for creating meaning. They're just comfortable, but ultimately small and insignificant in their aims. Complacent.
A warning against apathy.
Old wrong warning. And his critique of religion, especially Christianity, gets sharper here too. He contrasts it unfavorably with Greek tragedy.
What's the key difference for him?
He tends to see Christianity, or at least certain interpretations, as emphasizing weakness, guilt, denying the value of this earthly life. Whereas Greek tragedy, for him, embodied a courageous affirmation of life, including its terrible aspects.
But facing fate head on.
Exactly. The tragic hero confronts suffering, fate, and finds a kind of grandeur even in defeat. It embraces the whole spectrum, light and dark.
Which fits his overall philosophy.
Perfectly. And Aphorism 377, We Artists, brings it back again the crucial role of artists and philosophers acting like artists in creating meaning now.
They're the ones who have to shape the new perspectives.
Yes, they weave the new narratives that can give direction and meaning when the old maps are gone.
And finally, there's the appendix, the Songs of Prince Vogelfrey, Philosophy in Verse.
Right. They offer a more lyrical take on many of these themes. Vogelfrey itself means free as a bird, but also outlawed, outside the norm. It captures that free spirit venturing beyond conventions.
Nice poetic capstone.
It really illustrates his belief in art's power to convey these deep ideas with emotional resonance.
So looking back over our journey through it, the gay science is just. It's so much more than the title might suggest. It's complex, it's challenging.
Fully multifaceted.
It really forces you to rethink truth, morality, meaning itself, especially in a world where those old certainties feel like they've dissolved. Ultimately, it feels like a call to, well, embrace life fully, warts and all, and to step up and become an active creator of your own values.
That's a great summary. Nietzsche really compels us to face the consequences of the death of God and to see it not just as a loss, but maybe as an opportunity to forge our own meaning.
Taking responsibility.
Exactly. It's a call for intellectual honesty, for courage and self-creation, and ultimately for a kind of joyful yes to life, even with all its difficulties.
It's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
To really dig deeper into these transformative ideas, we definitely encourage everyone to grab a copy of Friedrich Nietzsche's The Gay Science. You'll find a link for that right in the description below.
It's worth the read. Challenging, but rewarding.
Absolutely. And if you found this deep dive into Nietzsche's thought useful, be sure to subscribe to Books and Bytes. We do explorations like this into influential works regularly.